Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me once again on this Reverse Recruitment 0% Growths LTC. Today, this is our swamp. Chapter 1-8 is a route map that spreads our team across 3 different starting areas. The game effectively chooses over half of our roster for us, but they happen to be pretty good choices. By making the most of what we're given, we can meet the enemy on all fronts in record time. Additionally, this is the map where we will finally achieve S-rank strike on Caineghis. Have you figured out what we'll need it for yet? Seraph Knight Tanith is just about the most perfect gift we could receive here. Her stats are of course monstrous, but the standout attributes are flight and access to 1-2 ranged weaponry. She actually joins as a level 20 Falcon Knight, so we return to base to promote her with a level of bonus experience. It's worth noting that the wind edge we have given her is rather inaccurate, especially at a weapon triangle disadvantage. We will do our best to not let enemies compound that issue with terrain. Bastion has one job on this map, but the clear wouldn't work without him. That job is to shove Leanne, our first Heron Laguz. There are 3 of them in Radiant Dawn, and they all have the ability to refresh the actions of 1-4 adjacent allies. In vanilla, the game never gives you more than 1 of them at a time. Otherwise, they could refresh each other and grant the player infinite action economy. In Reverse Recruitment, Herons can only replace other Herons to preserve this safeguard. Despite the fact that Leanne replaces Raphael, she actually retains the ability to refresh 4 adjacent allies. It turns out that character data and the data for the Vigor ability are not stored in the same place. While the Herons themselves will rotate, the amount of units that they can refresh will not. One of Leanne's perks is that she is tiny, so even Laurent can take her from running and drop her for next turn. The trio that is forced to deploy down south will need to start spreading themselves out. Caineghis' job is easy. Skirmir transforms so that he can deal with the bandit on enemy phase and rush to the west afterward. Naysala, with his unhindered movement over the swamp, draws out the enemies to the east. When analyzing a route map like this, it helps to identify the most difficult challenges and try to efficiently deal with those first. We have several extremely strong combat units, so meeting stat benchmarks is not the limiting factor. However, there are several enemy groups with enemies that can attack at range, making Tanith the best choice to defeat them on enemy phase. The goal, then, becomes maximizing what Tanith can do and letting the others fill in the gaps. In addition to dealing with several one-range enemies, Naysala has lured a priest farther to the left. Like in Chapter 1-6-1, we must commit player phase actions to defeat the 2 priests present on this map. It was not necessary for Tanith to proc her stun skill there. I'll demonstrate why on the next turn. These 2 enemies up top are far away from our best combat units. They will require some special tactics. The glowing light from Nasir was his boon skill, which cures the status conditions of adjacent allies at the start of each turn. Curing poison isn't a big deal, but it also works on sleep and silence conditions. If Tanith had not killed all the Western bandits last turn, here's where Skirmir would finish one off. Tanith can take out the priest and lead the others to the lion's fangs. Here's where the clear starts to get tricky. Peleus needs some help to get within attack range of the bandit on the right, so Kurth shunts him for the second time. This opens up a spot for Caineghis to attack him from next to Nasir. With that, we receive our long-awaited reward. Caineghis won't need Nasir's help anymore, but Peleus will. The terrain in the northeast prevents Nasir from walking to the desired spot, so running picks him up for a detour. This positioning lets Leanne refresh both him and Tanith. The Seraph Knight will use her second player phase action to take out her second priest. She occupies the thicket to deny it from the enemies. Up north, Peleus demonstrates that he can't double this bandit on his own. Paladin Redding uses his full movement to drop off Nasir within White Pool range, fixing that issue. The terrain works in our favor afterwards. Renning cannot be attacked. The only way we fail now is if Tanith or Peleus miss an attack. In retrospect, I think it would have been worthwhile to forge an additional 5 hit on Azuka's Gleam. With this final round of combat, we route 1-8 in just 2 turns, and avoid having to deal with most of the reinforcements. The next chapter goes by quickly, so let's squeeze that one in as well. Welcome to Chapter 1-9. This is a Black Knight, who is invincible and kills everything in one round of combat. The only other blue unit on this map is Laurent, who gets killed by everything in one round of combat. Sal decided to keep the Black Knight here since the map doesn't work without him. The win condition is to defeat the boss, Jared, but he doesn't spawn until we eliminate a certain number of enemies. This means that the pace of the map is dictated by our combat, and in 0% growths, we only have one combat unit. In practice, this map plays out just like it does in vanilla. I have chosen to treat it as a solved problem, and simply copy the clear that Sharur demonstrated in his vanilla 0% growths hard mode LTC. Since I didn't put any original thought into this map, there's not much on-screen worth talking about. This sequence of moves has already been tried and tested. What I'm going to do with this time instead is talk a bit about how I leaned on Sharur's LTC for guidance, and mention some future plans. To reiterate, Sharur played with regular recruitment and on hard mode. He made clear that he was not planning very far into the future, and his tolerance for reliability was different from mine. Any direct comparison between our runs is comparing apples to oranges. That said, reviewing his footage gave me an idea of what was possible. For most maps, my approach was to first develop a strategy on my own, then see if Sharur had beaten my turn count. If he was making quicker progress than me on a harder difficulty, then usually one of two things was true. Either I lacked a crucial tool, or I could do better. His videos helped push me to improve, so I want to take this moment to say to Sharur, thanks. I appreciate all your work. Part 1 of Radiant Dawn has been pretty snappy, but as the game continues, the maps tend to get longer. While I do enjoy these tightly scripted videos, and I plan to make many more, I'm interested in bringing on co-commentators from the community. I won't ask for much, just that you take an interest in what's going on and ask some questions. If you'd like to do that, hit me up on Discord. If this map didn't have Fog of War, we could attack Jared on turn 7. Alas, we will have to settle for clearing 1-9 in 8 turns. Join me next time for the Part 1 finale. Take care, everyone.